Well, moving on, how do you tell if your idea is truly meeting real need or just riding the wave of the latest trend? Are you building something that truly addresses pressing need, or is it just chasing attention? Our next session, Hype versus Substance, your business solving a real problem, we'll explore these questions and highlight why identifying real demand is essential for long-term success. So please join me in welcoming our panelists. We have our moderator, Durell Coleman, the CEO and founder of Design, and we have panelists Manoj Thakur, the CEO, Driscoll Associates, and Dr. Carl Forkner, President and CEO of Success Consulting, and John Paul, the CEO, 14th Floor Solutions, LLC. Let's give them a warm welcome.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a session on a topic that I think every leader in this room needs to have with themselves. Hype versus substance. We live in an era where attention is cheap, but trust is expensive, especially maintaining that trust. As we move forward right now, almost every product that we see is slapped with the label with AI on it. Almost every founder is encouraged to say that they're disrupting some space. One of the biggest challenges that we face is continuing to anchor to substance over the urge or the tendency at times to follow the hype. This is true both in the for-profit space as well as the nonprofit space. No one is immune to it. And so we're here to talk about that a little bit more today. Because ultimately what we know is that the businesses and organizations that last aren't the ones that attach to the hype. They are the ones that get the closest. The ones that get the closest to their customers, the closest to the real problem, the closest to the issue that they are solving for those that they serve. And so that's what we're here to unpack today. That's what we're going to talk about. How do you build something of substance in a world that rewards hype? How do you know that you're solving a real problem and not just riding a trend? And with that, we are going to do an introduction of our panelists. My name is Durell Coleman. I'm the founder and CEO of Design. We are a social impact consulting firm. We work primarily with nonprofits to help them create transformational change in the world. I've also built an organization that is a for-profit firm, and so I know what it means to pass through that challenge of building a team, structuring an organization that's anchored to something of substance, and I look forward to telling you more about that today. I'll pass it over to John.
Hi, I'm John Pohl, career-long marketer. I started my career on the corporate side, serving as Director of Marketing, VP of Marketing for such companies as Dial, Cobra Electronics, Kellogg's, the E&J Gallo Winery. And 19 years ago, I decided to start my own marketing agency called 14th Floor Solutions. During those 19 years, I've had the good fortune of working for dozens and dozens of very innovative companies. And one of the sobering realities is that even the most innovative companies can often fail. And when they do, it's usually because they didn't tell their story well. I have a strong passion for helping my very innovative clients succeed by telling their story as powerfully as possible.
Manoj Thakur, CEO of Driscoll Associates. Driscoll Associates, since last about 30 years, has been installing business operating systems to small and mid-sized businesses. Now let me unpack what business operating systems is. Whenever you all have started as a founder, you started with a paper and a pen. After that, you got into a spreadsheet. Then you got into the digital format of the same tools. Moving forward, you got into an accounting software, CRM, ERP systems, now AI. So all these terminology that you have been hearing, it all forms part of your operating system. That's what we do. And to get you through this topic, we are someone who will translate hype into reality. That's what we do. With that, I will pass it on to our next speaker.
My name's Dr. Carl Forkner. I do two things. My entrepreneurial pursuit is I'm a research psychologist, but what takes most of my time is that I'm the adjutant and CEO for disabled American veterans for the state of Arizona. That encompasses about 460,000 veterans throughout the state. And we are in the process of really innovating how we reach our clients, our veterans, and their families through using technology. And a lot of that has to do with looking at our core competencies as we do it so that we stay within our lane.
Wonderful. So you see we have a diverse and talented group. Before we go further, this panel is called Hype versus Substance. And I think what's important to bring to the fore is that those words mean different things for different people. And so if each of you can give us just a sentence, a phrase about what hype means versus what substance means in the work that you do. We'll start with you.
In my world, hype is what you use when you don't have anything of substance to talk about. If you're watching a TV commercial and you see a celebrity, the chances are it's because that company doesn't think that their product is interesting enough to hold anybody's attention. Substance is about differentiation. It's having a solution to a target audience's problems, to their needs, that is legitimately and objectively superior to what everybody else is offering. It's great to be able to say that you're the best at what you do. Not many people can say that, but that's a great thing to shoot for. But an even higher aspiration is to be able to say that you're the only one who does what you do, to be thought of as the only one who does what you do. Not many companies can say that. Apple is a notable exception. Apple users don't use smartphones, they use iPhones. And I'm not saying that everybody can become an Apple, but I think it is something that would be very aspirational for companies to keep in mind.
In my way of looking at hype, you may feel that hype is totally negative. Somebody may say so. But think of a journey of a product or your services that you all have found out that this is a need. There is a consumer exists who can be benefited by what you have produced, whether it is service or product. Now you may have marveled it. You may have an excellent product at that timeline. But guess what? Who other than you is aware of that product or the service that you have created? Now, there are ways that you can wait and see that, okay, this will eventually reach to the end customer or the consumer of your services. Well, that's true. But it will take its own time. And that time may be outside of your business timeline. What you do, we have two options at that point of time. Either you follow your instinct, be the real person, be associated with the product, and keep improving it over and over, and wait that somehow it reaches to your audience and you become profitable. You have an ROI, then you can continue. The other platform that you have is, okay, you create some buzzword, you create some noise. In that sense, hype becomes a necessary ingredient for you to take your product or services to your audience. And you can spin it positively. That does not mean that you are not factually misstating anything. What that means is you are true to your commitment, you are true to your delivery system, and all you are looking for that, hey, lend me your ears. I am here that I can offer you better services or product than what you have been using. So they are the two different ways of looking at it, looking at this conversation. It will be very interesting to see the different perceptions that comes from you or from this panel. With that said, I will pass on to.
Yeah, for my organization, hype versus substance really identifies one of our big battles. We look at claim sharks that are trying to get veterans to come give them up to 30% of what they get from the VA for them to help them, whereas we as a nonprofit do all of that for free and have trained people accredited by the VA. And what that means to us is we are not able to afford TV commercials, billboards, radio commercials, and so forth. What we get is social selling because of our substance, because of what we do for our clients, and the success that we bring to them.
Can you explain really quick what social selling is?
Sure. Social selling is we come out and we help a veteran with getting their benefits that they've earned through their service, and they're happy about it, and so they tell their neighbor, they tell their veterans organization that they're a part of, And the word spreads that way that, you know, these guys know what they're doing, and you need to go talk to them.
Thank you for that. So in many ways, very indicative of the value of what you've provided. I would answer this question by saying that hype versus substance. Substance is when, especially in the work that I do, consulting with organizations that are trying to end poverty, they're trying to really help people move from point A to point B, which is a parallel in business as we try to help customers create some sort of transformation, move from some point to another, satisfy some need that they have. Substance is really knowing what those issues are, really nailing the core things that matter. We call them key leverage points in our work. Whereas hype is often addressing symptoms. It's addressing something on the surface. It might be creating what you're creating because a funder or some other source is saying that that's really interesting, that's really cool, that's what you should focus on. But it's not necessarily solving the root of the issue. And so as founders, as leaders, we want to be focusing in on substantive change. And so that's actually really what my next question is. So we think a lot as business leaders that we know our customers. Often we like to think that we do, and we assume that we understand all of their challenges. But I want to ask Carl quickly to talk a little bit about what happens when we don't really know our customers, when we build something that's not rooted in that truth and that understanding.
Yeah, it's really important to know your customer because one of the things that you can get caught up in is trends. And trends come and trends go, fads come and fads go. But if you know your customer and you match them to your core competencies, that organization is going to endure and they're going to be able to continue serving the actual needs of the customers.
Building on that, I think the fundamental question I would ask all of you is, when was the last time you had that conversation with your customers? How deeply do you know what their pain points are, what their challenges are? One thing we've discovered in our work is that there are two types of engagement. There is a very organic form of engagement, right? You meet people, you talk to your customers frequently. You may understand to a degree what those challenges are, but that's distinct from having an intention of going in to understand what those issues are, testing your assumptions, challenging where they're valid and where they're not. I'll give you an example from a different space, or give you an example from my work that illustrates this. We worked with a county in Santa Clara, it was called Santa Clara County, to help to develop their strategy for reducing jail recidivism. This is the rate of people going back to jail when they leave jail. We want to reduce that number. We want people to stay free and live lives that are productive to the community, et cetera. There were all sorts of assumptions around what that challenge is, as well as work that was happening. Some of them were directionally correct. But I will tell you that the number one quote that we heard that really captured the challenge around jail recidivism was, if I can't pay for housing, I go to jail. Oh, I thought we were talking about incarceration. I thought we were talking about things that needed to happen behind bars. But when it comes to actually staying out of jail, it wasn't about more transitional housing units. It wasn't about more drug rehab programs. It was about my ability to pay for housing so that I can stay out of jail. Those issues were brought to the fore by a person who'd been incarcerated 3 times and was actually incarcerated while I was having that conversation with them. And so that would be the question for all of you, is to ponder, when was the last time I had that conversation with my customers to understand what they need as well?
Yeah, I spent a couple decades ago, 8 years in the consumer electronics industry. Very exciting in many ways, but a very frustrating industry, because I think at that time the typical consumer electronics manufacturer built their product plan not based on talking to consumers to see what they wanted, what they were missing, but looking at what their competitors were doing and then doing the same thing. And if you looked at every category, TVs, whatever it might be, everybody had pretty much the same features, which means that the way you got the sale, if you were a manufacturer, is you had a lower price. And that led to this spiral where every year for many, many years, prices were literally going down year after year in that category. Nobody was making money. A lot of people were losing money. A company called Cobra Electronics was the epitome of that. They'd lost money for 7 years in a row. And they brought me in as VP of Marketing to change that. And the first thing I did was have my team go out and talk to consumers in our different categories. One of the categories is radar detectors. And we found that people a lot of people felt guilty about using radar detector because they felt that it was helping them maybe break the law. They wanted to not get tickets, but they just didn't feel good about it. So we thought, let's come up with a way to make them feel good about using a radar detector. And we came up with a technology called Safety Alert, which would alert them whenever there was a high-speed vehicle, a ambulance, fire truck, police car, train in the vicinity. It would send off an alert because a stunning number of people die every year in those kinds of accidents. So we basically took radar detectors from something that saves you from getting a ticket to something that could save you from losing your life. And the result is within 2 years, we went from number 5 in the category to number 1. Cobra went from losing money to making money. And Forbes magazine named us one of the top 200 companies in the country as well. So that is the power of listening to the people you serve.
I love that example, and just how cleanly substance became the foundation for what you chose to build around and how you turn this organization around. That kind of takes us to the next question, which is, let's imagine now we've done that. We've gone and we've had those conversations. We've come to understand what the substance is. It takes years to build an organization that has the right foundation, that's focused on the right things, but we also know that it can be torn down pretty quickly. And so I'd start with Carl, just with a question for you around what does it look like when an organization shifts from focusing on what it does best, right, or begins to chase hype instead? What are the ramifications of that when that happens?
Thanks, Durell. We had this happen in the chapter that I'm a member of for Disabled American Veterans. I was the adjutant and CEO for 4 years, and then the commander/president for 3 years. We were on an upward trajectory. We had a number of assets, a number of trained people to help veterans. Then I had my change of command. And within less than 3 months, the person that followed me basically tore apart everything that I had worked to build over 7 years. The reputation of the chapter went from stellar to stay away from those guys. He went away. A new commander/president took over, who is still there. And he realized that the problem that the prior guy had was he tried to do things that weren't surrounding our core mission. And our core mission has to do with veterans, their families, and their survivors. And so he went back to starting with the basic fundamentals of what our core mission is and how to maximize our ability to do that core mission. And as a result, he has, in the last 9 months, restored the reputation of that chapter. And that chapter now, of all the 15 chapters in the state, does 55% of the work for veterans with the VA.
Great, Manoj. I'd be curious to hear if you have something to add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in our world, when we try to onboard interest, so somebody's interested, any of you can express interest that, hey, I have heard about business operating system or maybe an ERP system or CRM, and I'm interested in implementing that. That information comes to us. Now, from that point forward, we are going to assess your real need. So I know you are pumped up with the information that you have gathered through different channels, reading periodicals, going to podcast and all that stuff. What we want you to go through with us to understand your pain point and why are you trying to implement a particular system at this stage of your business. Do you really have a good drivers to do that? If we don't see those data points, then politely we will guide you in a path where you get a little bit of more maturity in the process and what you're trying to achieve. It's hurting us in some way, but we are the one who are giving you some services which we commit by ourselves to say that, okay, this is what is going to happen to you. So we cut through all the noise. It's really another way you can say that where the rubber meets the road. And we don't want to bring you or onboard you as our customer where we can't stand by what we committed to you. So we take you through that process. You may not be ready for next 3 months. You might be ready in next 12 months. We will be with you throughout that process, but we will not get you through the falls start of your project?
This challenge is something that I see frequently as well in my work, and I think it applies for leaders of all sorts of backgrounds, from for-profit to nonprofit. There's this element of you recognizing that there are other challenges out there. There are other things to solve, and there's a tendency at times to drift from what those are. Even in my work especially, I talk a lot about what does it look like to solve the core problems around an issue, around jail recidivism, around homelessness, around some of these big social challenges. And that can lead to us looking beyond where we're at right now and offering things that maybe start to drift from what the core mission is. This is actually why I think the anchoring to substance and the having those conversations with those that you serve is so important. When you have those conversations, what you hear, you start to hear the same thing over and over. The things that you hear over and over become the things that you lean into. And what we find is that there are 3 to 4 key leverage points. These are the biggest pain points. These are the most important issues often for us to solve in any given area. Any organization that wants to remain anchored to what it does best would benefit from identifying what are those key things, what is the key substance that I'm linking myself to and that I'm focused on. And then from there, we can ask ourselves the question, where might I contribute to things that are outside of that when they emerge? How might I do that? But I don't get pulled into believing those are my core function. Right? There are ways to partner, there are ways to collaborate, there are other ways to address those issues. And so I think that sort of builds on those points. But a question I do have about sort of where we're at, right? Because so far we've been talking about hype versus substance, like all hype is a bad thing. We sort of began to touch on this topic a little bit earlier. Can an organization succeed on pure substance? Can it do that without any hype? And I'd love to hear Manoj from you and then John from you on this point, just to tease apart a little bit of the language that we're using and how we think about these concepts.
That's a very good question for all of us here in this room to understand. These are all necessities of the society. How as a consumer we try to acquire product or purchase a product and service. Think of a mechanical engine, for example, a car without a lubrication. If you just put a mechanical engine, you don't have lubrication into it, how that's going to function. So some level of tolerance is needed, and that's what hype does to any business. You need to create buzzwords. If you do not, then you need a good amount of capital whereby the goodness of your product or services will start emanating, and you can support, your capital can support that timeline when it becomes a buzzword or when it becomes available to the audience. So there is a positivity associated with it. It all depends how you want to use it. The best way is to apply it when it is needed, in the amount that is needed, and stay away from the negativity that it can carry and start impairing your brand name. So these are some of the basics that I would suggest to move forward with these two terms. They are not contradictory to each other. They supplement in many ways. And we need to understand where they can supplement each other and where they should not supplement each other.
Thanks for that, John. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this.
Even the most brilliant products, in most cases, can't sell themselves. They've got to be marketed in one way or the other. Now, most of us aren't in businesses where we have television advertising or the budgets for something like that. But the way you communicate about your product, your service, whether it be in your website, in emails, on social media, LinkedIn, whatever it might be, it has to be able to do two things. It's got to be able to, first of all, get the attention of your target audience. They're busy people. They've got a lot of things on their mind, a lot of things they're worried about, and getting a message from you isn't on their to-do list. But you've somehow got to break through that and get their attention, and then when you do, you've got to do a good job of communicating why it is that your solution is the answer to their prayers, that it's going to be a significant step up from what they're doing right now. Here's a real sobering fact. If you're in the B2B business, which I assume most people here are, only 5% of all customers in the B2B world are actively looking for a new vendor at any point in time. They've got too many other things to worry about. So if you want to get them to even consider you as a new vendor, it's on you to get their attention. And it's not an easy thing to do. But when you can do it in the right way, you're being clever. And clever is to be two things. To be clever is to be smart and to be creative. And if you can have that website or that email or that post or your logo or maybe even your company name be something that makes people go, wow, that's cool, that's interesting. If it makes them smile, if it makes them laugh, that's going to make them more likely to want to learn more and to dig in. And that's so important because if and research shows that there's a leveraging effect to being clever. If somebody sees something that you've done at website, whatever it might be, that's clever, they're more likely to give you the benefit of the doubt and think that everything else you do is clever too. And that means you're going to sell more product. That leveraging effect is so profound that I've actually trademarked a term for it. I call it cleverage. And it's a very powerful effect that I really encourage everybody to try to pursue.
Carl, I'd be curious to hear if you have anything you want to add to this. I know you talked about this briefly before, but just any thoughts that you have on this?
Yeah, actually, hype is kind of the antithesis to what we have. As John mentioned, most people don't have great, big marketing budgets. We certainly don't have the budget to buy a lot of TV time, but some of what we call claim sharks, the people that are out there hunting for our veterans, do. But they have hype without the substance to deliver on that hype. Whereas what we do is we're present, we're there where the veterans are, and we deliver on the promises to take care of those veterans. And so, as I mentioned with social selling, they spread the word about our ability to do that. And if you were to go down to Phoenix, in the Phoenix veteran community, and say, Dr. Carl, 90% of the people would know exactly who you're talking about because it's all about presence and coming through on your promises.
I think I would summarize a lot of these points by saying that substance should be the anchor of what you do. And there's a way to make sure that it is anchoring the work, right? Which is those conversations. I think every example here has sort of had this element of knowing the people you're serving. At the same time, we have to find a way to communicate what we're doing to people. But what I think Carl's example really illustrates is when we do that really well, people begin to sell for us. People begin to talk about what you have. They begin to share that information. And so the substance leads. Maybe it's a different word. Maybe it's hype. Maybe it's buzz. Maybe it's cleverage. Maybe it's something else. But we know that there are these multiple components. I think getting the hierarchy of them right is one of the things that really matters.
Well said.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I said, well said.
I love that. On this topic, right, as we shift and we talk about this, I want to talk about the communication gap, right? So you can have the best offerings in the room, as we're talking about, and the most substantive product, but can most products really sell themselves is the question. So why is communicating substance so hard, and what separates the organizations that do it well, John?
Well, I think it's depressing almost, and striking that about 95%, depending on the study you're looking at, up to 95% of all new products fail eventually. Up to 90% of all businesses fail. Now, sometimes it's because they just weren't good products. They weren't well-run companies. But too often, even the most innovative companies with brilliant technologies will fail, or at least fail to achieve their objectives. And very often, and almost by definition, if that happens, it's because they didn't communicate their story well. There's something, and this is going to sound kind of boring, but it's very, very powerful, something that every message, whether it be an ad, an email, a business email, website, a post, it always has to be based around a customer promise. Companies need to make a customer promise, and there are three components to that. The first is that it's got to be something that is of significant value to the target audience, something that when they see it, they go, wow, I want that. I'm not getting that from anybody right now, but I'd really like to have that. That's number one. Number two, it should be something that nobody else is promising, that you can own. And number three, it is to be something that you can deliver. You have to be able to give them some evidence or some reason to believe that you can walk the talk. In many cases, they may have never heard of you. They may know nothing about your company. So you've got to build credibility by somehow giving them reason to believe that, wow, these guys can deliver. Now, the Work Advisory and the LinkedIn Business to Business Institute did a huge study of over 700 B2B marketing campaigns. And they found a couple of interesting things. The one thing they found is that campaigns that had a customer promise at the core were 3 times more likely to generate market share increases than campaigns that didn't. 3 times, that's huge. But the really shocking thing is how few people have customer promises at the heart of their campaigns. This study found that only 18% of all companies, and not just small companies, but big companies, have a customer promise at their heart. So it makes you wonder, what if they don't have a customer promise to talk about, what are they talking about? But whatever they're talking about, it's not working, and it's not doing the trick. So a customer promise is essential. And here's the good news, though. If you're a small company and you're trying to become a big company and you're having to compete against big companies, if you've got a customer promise at the heart of your messaging, you've got a big advantage over that bigger competitor. Because the chances are, no matter how big they are, they're not doing it right either. They don't have a customer promise. A customer promise could be a great way for you to separate yourself from larger competitors that have much greater resources than you do.
So just to add on to this point, customer promise in communication, excellent. You have to make sure that the promises that you are making is delivered in 100% at least 100%. If you can exceed it, awesome, kudos to you. But the moment it goes below that, be aware of it. Your brand life is not going to be beyond few weeks or few months. It comes down quickly. So customer promise, great to start when it comes to delivery and whether your product has those features and whether you can make it through, keep their smile on when you started your project or service sales order with your customer. If you can transcend that, that is what as a founder or as a business person you should look up to. And that is what we have been seeing in the industry. The failure rate, you all might have seen that, the AI projects has failed 90% of the time over the last 3 years. ERP has been failing over the last 50 years in the 70 to 60% of range. So that is the failure we are talking about, and it's a big money. And all we get very influenced by the marketing campaigns, the buzzword, just staying relevant. Hey, if somebody is using AI, these graphics, can I do it? If I'm not doing, FOMO term that has come up, fear of missing out. So be practical. Promising is one thing. The other thing we would be looking for is how much can you deliver to what you are promising it.
Do you have any quick thoughts, Manoj, on how they can build the systems to support that type of delivery?
Absolutely. So when I will pick up some of the examples what we do at Driscoll Associates. As I mentioned in the beginning, how do we onboard our customers? So no matter how the intensity of customers' requirement is, if they have not gone through our validation layer of onboarding, we will buy more time. We will allow some time by giving some methodological approach to, okay, you need to look into this area of your business. Because they are not yet ready. Even though we implement a solution, an operating system for them, they are bound to fail. The probability of failure is very high. So you have to nurture your customer, educate them a little bit. It's expensive. It increases your sales cycle, maybe 6 months to 18 months. Those are the painful undertaking. Now, how you recover from it and how you walk them the tight rope with your promises and how we are going to deliver it, that is challenging aspect. That is where we as a founder and business owners and CEOs need to look into it, whether you have the right team, the right culture, the right way to engage your customers in that format so that they understand what is doable versus what is not doable. That's what we are talking in terms of hype versus substance.
I think, John, your points were really instructive for how smaller organizations, right, or organizations that don't have gigantic budgets can begin to compete with the customer promise. I think, Manoj, you talked a bit more about how we build some of those structures. Carl, I'd be curious to hear from you, just as a last point on this piece, about a real example of how you've competed with some who might be anchoring to hype without having the huge budget.
Yeah. The most important thing when you don't have a huge marketing budget is presence. You have to be there and you have to deliver, because typically hype doesn't deliver. One of the ways that we're doing that this year is we just spent $80,000 in providing assets to our over 100 service officers in the state to be able to go to where the veterans are. If they're hospitalized, if they're homebound, if they have no transportation, if they're in hospice care, whatever the case, we come to them. We go to where the veterans are because we know they're not going to be able to walk through our door. And we have so many Native American veterans that have been underserved or not served for many decades. $30,000 of that money is going to putting remote stations for claims with a moderator for that station in each of the reservations in the state of Arizona so that they can get the benefits that they served to receive. And our Native Americans actually serve at a 5 times higher rate per demographic than any other demographic in the United States.
You know, just to put a cap on this for people out there that don't have the budgets that they would like to have, maybe this will make you feel a little bit better. Somebody once said that advertising is what you have to do when nobody's talking about you. And think about it this way. What can you do? Maybe you can't afford a TV campaign or even a radio campaign, but what can you do that would get people talking about you, that would maybe catch the eye of the local television station or the newspaper or a magazine and get them to do a story about you, or whatever it is that you're doing? That's the best advertising other than word of mouth that you can get. It's not paid advertising, it's something that you've earned. So think about what can you do to get people to talk about you. Durell, I've got a question for you. The space that you work in focuses on nonprofits and government agencies. How do you communicate substance to a group of customers that aren't necessarily in the market for what you're offering, or maybe even aware of what you're offering?
Yeah, thank you for that. I chose to build a business in a space that most people would advise you not build a business around. I serve nonprofits. I run a for-profit company that sells to nonprofits, a group that everyone knows are often looking for funding, a group that everyone knows have often long sales cycles, complex decision-making methodologies, et cetera. And on top of that, what we offer is 2 things. One, we help you anchor to the right solutions, making sure that the things that you're focused on to serve your community are truly the things that will move the needle. So that's strategic planning and strategy and some of those other components around key leverage points. But 2 is walking side by side with organizations to help them build an organization that can actually handle that structure. When we talk to folks, they're often like, I didn't know you existed. I didn't know an organization like you existed, because there aren't many that do this type of work. And so we've had to lean into some of the tactics that everyone here has been talking about. It's really about meeting people where they are. It's about getting on calls with folks. It's about making sure that we understand the substance of need so acutely that we can have a quick conversation. You only have so much time to catch somebody's attention. Can I say something that is going to say to someone, oh, wow, you understand where I'm coming from? Man, I've never heard someone speak to that pain point that I have. I just thought that was part of my job. I just thought that was part of my existence. I'd love to learn more. And so that's kind of how we approach it. I want a quick show of hands. Audience participation, that's where we're headed right now. We want to make sure that this is a panel that you remember. And so a quick show of hands. How many of you have invested in something? It could be a product, a service, a partnership, because the pitch was compelling, even though you weren't totally sure you needed it? Yes, if you ever bought something that you were like, I don't know if I need this, but the pitch was pretty compelling. Yeah? Okay, cool. Got a few more people. Some of you are like, no, never. Not me. All right, and now my next question is, how many of you have walked away from that product or the organization that was offering it because what they delivered didn't match the promise?
That shows where we are.
That shows where we are. I think that's the definition of hype over substance at times, right? This piece of being inconsistent in what we deliver. And I think that's a major component of what we've been talking about here. Well, I have one last question for all of you first, and it is, in one sentence, I want you to entertain this scenario. So a leader in the room has built something of real substance, but they can't break through the noise. What is the one discipline that separates organizations that endure from organizations that fade? And I'll just start here with you, John.
I think it's the ability and commitment to just stay true to your values, to remind yourselves, why did I start this business? What did I hope to accomplish? Obviously, you've had to make changes along the way. As Mike Tyson famously said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the nose. So you do have to course correct at times, but ideally, if you had a valid reason for starting your business and you had a strong set of core values underlying that, those values should live indefinitely. And I think it's just essential that you check yourselves on a regular basis to make sure, are we staying true to our mission, or do we need to get back on track?
Manoj?
Yeah, that's value is the underlying theme always, so that's a good point. What I would suggest is, challenge that value as if you are customer of your product or your solution. So go other side of the table. Think what you are thinking is a value to you. Is that the same level of value being perceived by your customers, whether it's a product or service? Challenge that, see that how it is mapping out, and work on it till the time you find it narrowly thin, where you see that now what if I do more, it's going to be expensive or it will be out of the market because of the cost repercussions. So keep working from both the sides.
Carl?
In our organization, we subscribe to a singular mission to empower, and I love that word empower because that means we're not doing it for them, but to empower veterans, their families, their caregivers, and their survivors to live high-quality lives with respect and dignity. And one of the things that our national CEO wrote about, and Senator Blumenthal and Representative Luttrell both talked about on the floor of Congress, was that words without action are meaningless. And what we do, we don't have the words out there on TV and radio. We have the actions actually going out, learning what our veterans and their families need, and providing that service to them, and it never costs them a penny.
I would answer this by saying I think the organizations that endure are the ones that know their customers, the ones that talk to their customers. If you think what you created years ago, whether you're a for-profit or a nonprofit, if you think what you created years ago is something that is going to meet needs today, and you haven't had that conversation, then you might be getting left behind. And so we have a saying in our work, you can't design for people you don't talk to. And fundamentally, that is an ongoing process. It's a practice. It's a discipline. It's not a one-time thing. And so that's the thing that I would give to any founder who wants to survive these storms. The world is changing. It's changing rapidly, dramatically, right? With a million different social factors that are on the table. How do we, as founders, as leaders, adapt to that? It's by staying in touch with the people that we're here to serve, to make sure that we continue to serve them. And so with that, I want to jump out to you. I want to see what questions you have as an audience. I told you we were going toward audience participation, and I think we've got time for 2 or 3. Yes. Oh, yeah, come up to the mic, actually. Go ahead and let's walk over to the mics for those who have questions.
Good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. T. Maurice Fowler, author and CEO of Fowler Media Group, and mine is a comment on what you were talking about, being authentic with your customers. I have a philosophy that making money is a byproduct of good human relations. And it's like an example. I'm not going to single out any particular hotel. Getting here and then checking in and get hit with, we need $500 that wasn't disclosed before, I got here, and it's like, okay. All right, we can do it, but it would have been nice to know before I got here. Making money is a byproduct of good human relations. When you're straight with people, they want to come back. But if you're iffy, sketchy, disingenuous, then they hesitate. So that's what I wanted to
If you're
share.
taking care of your customers, the money will take care of itself.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Excellent point. Thank you.
Yes.
Do you have any hints or tips or tricks for us as consumers going and buying products to figure out, is it hype or is it substance? Many of us have purchased products that look like they're full of substance. Are there any tips, tricks, tools to figure out and dissect out where is the product? Is it substance? Is it hype?
One of the big advantages, I think, of the interweb is that just about anything you buy, you can read reviews on. And I don't buy anything without reading reviews. Now, you have to be careful because there's some hacking going on, and not all reviews are legitimate. But I've had pretty good luck by not just reading the product description, but checking out not even the scores, but looking at the individual write-ups that different reviewers give. And I think that's the best solution I have for separating hype from substance.
And I agree with John, but I go one step further. If it's some kind of a capital purchase that I'm looking to make, I will look and see who did the reviews, and then I'll go take a look at the companies or organizations that wrote the reviews and see how it helped or didn't help that company or organization.
It's a good idea.
I just want to mention, my name is Monica Robles, founder of Asociación de Emprendedores. We are a nonprofit organization. And to all of your guys' comments, I started the organization with zero money, of course not for marketing, and to the substance of what we do, which is educate, empower, motivate, and develop the leadership skills and business acumen of the Hispanic community. And for the graduates, they're the ones that have been our marketing agents, let me put it that way, because with their own testimonial, they were spreading the word. And I started in one county in California, and now we are in 5, because even the cities and the counties and the same people that goes through the program and their internal transformation are our best marketers. So that's about substance. They live what we promise. So thank you very much for the conversation.
Thank you for that. Any other questions from the audience? Then I have one last question for our panel here. AI. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on AI and its impact in this sort of hype cycle that we're in. It seems like everyone has rushed to attach AI to whatever it is that they're doing. Do you have any thoughts for these leaders, these founders, as they think about AI and its role in the work that they're doing right now?
Let me start with this question. Now, your thought process when you hear AI term will be a function of the age group you belong to. It's unfortunately very difficult conversation, but I will pitch it that way. So if you are beyond 50, you will react in a particular way. If you are, say, 30 to 40, your reaction will be different. If you are below 30, you'll say, yeah, life is good. What is the problem? Why you guys are talking so negatively about AI? And the fact remains that is true. AI is going to be your best friend that you can think of within your professional work life. Just know how to write it. And if you do not have a way, do not resist that you do not have the information and you will keep it aside. Don't do that, please. There are tons of information available, tons of good quality resources available, particularly from the publishers who are writing these codes, who are creating these tool set. They are equally educating all of us. At least they have a very good intention. So if you reach out to them or go to their publicly available information, you can learn a tons of material. So this is going to be a best friend for all of us in this room in years to come. So do not hesitate. And hype is necessary, because if that would not have been hyped up, guess what? In this last 3 years, the way transformation has happened, the way usability of AI has become, everybody is now aware. Everybody has started to use it. At least you write an email using AI. If somebody is giving you a problem, you try to see, okay, what are the alternative thought process beyond my thought process? What a validation process it is. It's a good thing. It's like having a library at your fingertips. What is the problem with it? So embrace it, enjoy it, and you will all have a very, very good experience with it.
Yeah, I would just add that I use AI quite a bit. I treat it almost as an employee, a very, very smart employee, not right all the time, but often so. And the one thing I would encourage everybody to do, though, is to find the right AI for you, because they're not all created equal. Some are better for certain applications than others. And of course, you have to stay on top of it, because they're all changing almost on a daily basis. So I obviously, AI is here to stay. I think it's going to, on balance, be a huge net positive, but it's important to make sure you're using the one that makes the most sense for you.
Carl?
Yeah, I see AI as a member of my support staff. It can help point us in the right direction to enhance some of our functions. But I also see AI as a minefield that I'm walking through, because it goes back to the hype versus substance. If you, for instance, have a Facebook account and you go in and you type anything about AI, every other thing on your feed is going to be another AI company trying to sell you an AI product. So you have to be as careful with AI as the other gentlemen have said, to make sure that it's a good fit for your organization or your company.
Yeah, I would close by saying, I think that the fundamental thing I would express for any of the questions we've been asked is about substance. What is it that you offer that people really need? What is it that you offer that is useful? What is your customer promise? And are you still able to fulfill that? AI, for me, is something that's useful for optimizing aspects that don't violate substance and don't violate that promise. They don't violate what I've said I'm going to offer people. So to the degree that it can be used to speed up efficiency in building a document, right, or in analyzing something, or in doing background research, or whatever function that might be in your organization, that would be the ultimate question, is where does this come into play? Because I think, as someone said, it's not going anywhere. If it's only going to become more integrated into the world that we're in. And in fact, it's going to start shifting perspectives very soon as to the speed that people are expecting to get things back on, the quality that they're expecting to get it back at, when they think people will be, or someone or something will be available to respond to them. And so I would encourage every founder to be thinking, how does this add to my ability to anchor to the substance that I've chosen to provide for those that I serve, and do it there. And I think we're out of time. So maybe thank you to our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.